What in the world was Dan Wilson thinking? We'll try and figure that out coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Tuesday, May 6, 2025. This is Tony Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On MLB. That's LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off your first purchase. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, you can check out our Patreon. All you have to do to check that out is click the link in the description of this episode. So Mariners get walked off by the A's last night. We're going to talk about Bryce Miller and still give some love to Andres Munoz for what he was able to do in the 10th inning. But we have to, unfortunately, start with the way in which the Mariners lost this game. So let's take it to the bottom of the 11th, 6-6 ball game. The game-winning run is on third with one out. Dan Wilson calls for not one, but two intentional walks of Shea Langeliers and J.J. Bleday to load the bases for one of the best, if not the best, contact hitter in the game in Jacob Wilson. I am still failing to grasp why this was the plan. I understand the idea. The idea is very simple. Jacob Wilson running like a 92% contact rate. He's going to put the ball in play. Hopefully he hits it to one of our guys and we're able to get it out here. At least one, right? Get the force out at home. And that's what they were playing for. Played the infield end. They were playing for the force out. Maybe, one of those home to first double plays, depending on the timing of the play. But that's what they were playing for. I think it's really stupid, though. I think I would have preferred to. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, but even in the moment, I would rather take my chances against Langeliers or Bleday, who, by the way, has really struggled against righties. I think he's running an 80 WRC plus against righties, and Langeliers is running a sub 300 on base this year.
Right. That they messed up long before the decision to play the infield in, which is also another questionable decision from, on Dan's side of things there. Because Langeliers, while he's not striking out a ton this year, he's a career 27.5% strikeout guy. And you need a strikeout. And by the way, you don't have to worry about Jacob Wilson because he was two hitters away. So you could have just attacked Langeliers and Bleday, and you could have left Wilson standing on deck. But instead you walk both of them and you bring up the contact hitter, the heavy contact hitter, and then you cut your infield range significantly by having them play in, particularly your new second baseman, Jorge Polanco, who we know doesn't have much range to begin with. And you play them. You basically sabotaged your team at every decision you made because you just shrank their margin of error more and more and more. They gave up the game-winning hit, but with the bases loaded, what if Legumina had hit somebody? What if he walked somebody? There's just no margin of error there. And you create a situation where you have no margin of error. By the way, runner on third with one out, you do have a margin of error. It's not a big one, but you have a margin of error there. Runners on first and third with one out, you do have a margin of error.
Yeah.
Bases loaded, one out, you have no margin for error. None.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you put yourself in that, you chose to put yourself in that position. And the job of the manager is to put his team in the most advantageous position possible to win games. Dan Wilson utterly failed last night. Full stop. He failed when he decided to walk Langeliers. He failed when he decided to walk Bleday. He failed when he decided to play his infield in. He screwed up last. There's no way around it. No, there's no defending it. There's no this is not, me confirming priors or anything. This is very clear. Dan screwed up last night. And you know who thinks he did too? Dan Wilson. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He screwed up last night. And when you have a pro like Aaron Goldsmith questioning decisions made in the booth, in the broadcast booth, you know that it's bad.
He was beside himself after it happened. Yeah.
And he should be, and all Mariners fans should be, because Dan Wilson, I don't want to say he screwed you, because at the end of the day, right, the Mariners didn't score in the top of the 11th.
Yeah.
That's on the players. The pitching staff gave up 7 runs. That's on them. And very clearly, Dan didn't have the full deck in his bullpen, because it was obvious Matt Brash and Gabe Spire were not pitching yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Neither pitched yesterday, but whatever. They weren't available, clearly. So, yeah, I mean, like, look, he got put in a tough situation because Bryce only went 4 and he didn't have 2 of his best leverage arms, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Randy was clearly down for the day.
Right. So, again, it's not an ideal situation. We get that, but you also made it even tougher on yourself. You didn't work with the pieces you had available to you to give yourself the best chance to win. Didn't happen. And that is on the manager. It is on the manager when the team is not well positioned to win a game because of their decisions, right? The best managers, they have minimal impact on any game because they're just doing the smart thing and letting the players play. Bad managers do stuff like this and they cost your team wins. Now, is this just a one-off? Is this a learning opportunity for Dan? Sure. Yeah, it certainly could be. Like, I'm not sitting here saying fire Dan Wilson, right? But there's no question about it. The way he handled the bottom of the 11th inning, he screwed up at every single decision point.
Yeah, it was an abject failure. The thing that I don't really get here is, like, clearly they made the decision that if we're going to survive this, we have to get a ground ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not bring in a 5th infielder? You have 2 out in the outfield, and Leo Rivas and Miles Mastroboni. Why wasn't there a 5th fielder playing up the middle? I still feel like they should have played a double play depth. I felt like that was their best bet in that situation, especially with Polanco in there. Yep. Like, anything hard hit in the second base vicinity, that was probably going to get by Polanco. It's a lot to ask of a guy playing second base for the first time in however long it's been.
Wow.
Right?
Since
he hasn't even played it this year, right? Yeah.
No,
so
he played first base in the San Francisco.
Yeah, for one pitch.
Yeah, the similar situation that happened in San Francisco. So, again, he just didn't put his team in the best position to win. And I don't think Leo Rivas and Miles Mastroboni, I don't know off the top of my head, I don't think they have the best arms in the world. So any fly ball not to Julio probably wins the game anyways. So yeah,
right. And that's how they were operating, right? Yeah, it was very clearly like, the only way we're going to get out of this is if we generate a ground ball and we either get the force out at home or we get a double play.
And this is the most annoying part. You put yourself in a position where the only way you are going to get out of this is to get the ground ball right at somebody off the bat of Jack Wilson, who makes a ton of contact, and you're going to have your infield play in. So, like, you forced yourself into a situation where the only way you could get out of this was with the ground ball right at somebody.
Yeah.
Like, so again, every single step along the way, Dan took his margin of error and he just kept on chopping it in half. Eventually there was none and it cost you. So, like, there's not a single thing that Dan Wilson did in the 11th inning that helped his team win a baseball game.
Yeah.
And what a surprise. They didn't, because it turns out, using your 5th or 6th best reliever in that situation, he couldn't make it work with no margin for error. And again, like I said, not all of it is on Dan. Bryce only went 4.
And I get it. Like, in that situation, you didn't score in the top of the 11th. Mm-hmm. They get the game-winning run automatically on second, and you don't have one of your high leverage dudes in there. Like, you kind of have to try something crazy in that situation. I get how you... Yeah, I get what you're about to say, but, like, I kind of, like, I can understand how you can come to the conclusion of, like, we need to try something here, but the specific thing that they tried made no sense, especially with how, again, they handled it, right? It's not just going after Wilson. It's not just loading the bases. It's only having 4 infielders, having them play in, like, all of it just didn't make sense.
No, it honestly, it felt like they panicked. And that's not something that you can do if you're a manager. You can't panic, right? You can't be like, oh, we didn't foresee this. Of course you did. When Bryce only went 4, when you knew you didn't have Spire or Brash for the night, when you were throwing Vargas and Thornton out there for 2, you knew that's like, we're probably getting to a point where I'm going to have to use one of these lesser leverage arms with the game winning or game tying run on base. Almost certainly you're going to have to do that. So what's the plan for when that happens?
Yeah.
Because what we saw in the 11th inning, that didn't feel like a plan. That felt like reaction, scared. I don't know what to do. Let's try this. And
well,
of course it failed. Of course it failed.
And it just kind of felt like this team ran out of gas, right? They're not at full strength heading into this one.
No.
I mean, in general, they're not at full strength, but even more so with Randy being down and Brash and Spire clearly being down. This was the first time we really felt the lack of depth play into things. Like they ran out of bodies towards the end here, and they had to do some weird things, right? Like trying to get offense in the top of the 11th. They pinch hit Garver for Rylan Thomas, which led to Leo Rivas having to play in the outfield and Jorge Polanco having to play at second and all this stuff, right? Like it really felt like this was the first true time that we saw the lack of depth hurt them in a big way. So yeah, it just kind of felt like this game was obviously winnable, but it also felt like a game that they weren't meant to win.
It's really hard to win when you're playing 5 guys down. That's not counting the guys who are on your IL.
Yeah.
Right. You just have 3 or 4 guys that you cannot use on that day. And then you go into extras and then your starter only goes 4. Like, yeah, there are a lot of things that add up. But again, at the end of the day, it's on Dan Wilson to manage that better.
Yeah.
This is literally his job. This is the one thing he can do to impact wins and losses. And he blew it last night.
I think the real reason they lost this game, though, is how bad Bryce Miller was.
Agreed.
So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. I kind of jumped the gun yesterday in announcing that the Mariners Postcast was beginning last night. Apparently plans had changed, and I found out after. But it looks like Anders and Chris are not going to be starting that up until next week. Maybe this weekend was the word that I got. So I'll let you guys know as soon as I hear definitively this time when it's going to start. But to be honest, they probably dodged a bullet not starting last night after that one. So yeah. All right. Let's talk about Bryce Miller. He only goes 4 innings, and frankly, probably shouldn't have even been allowed to finish that 4th inning. But he only goes 4 innings, 4 earned runs on 7 hits, no walks, which is an improvement. But he only struck out 1, gave up a ton of hard contact. The fastball velo was mostly where you want it to be. I mean, in the first inning, he was consistently 96, and we even saw 97 from him. So it was like, oh, okay, arm's feeling pretty good. But he had no feel whatsoever for his splitter. And some of the misses that he had on his slider were gross to watch. He was not fun to watch last night at all. The more I watch him, and again, he probably is still dealing with something, and his mechanics are probably out of whack because he's overcompensating for whatever he's dealing with right now, if it's arm fatigue or maybe the back or what have you. But the more that I watch him, the more this just looks like a guy that like is just completely out of sorts rather than he's just strictly pitching hurt. Like it looks like everything has gone sideways for Bryce Miller.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to watch because Bryce right now, he's not even really competing. He's struggling to survive. And, there's a big difference between a guy who is like fighting through some stuff and he's managing and he's working through it. Kind of like we've seen Luis Castillo do this at times this year where you're just like, man, Luis just does not have it. He's competing right now. He's using guile and he's kind of like working his way through this lineup, but man, Bryce not even doing that. Like Bryce is struggling to survive at the big leagues right now. And yeah, the fastball velo really weird. It was 97 and then it dropped to like 92, 93 in the second inning. But then it was, 96, 97 again after that. So that kind of like extreme up down nature of the velocity leads me to believe that there is something mechanical here and there is some kind of mental block here that is causing this. And I think the mechanical thing could be caused by the soreness that we know he's felt throughout the year. And then the mental block thing is a direct correlation to the mechanical thing, because again, like my body's not doing what I need it to do. So I have to try and adjust to make this work. And now all of a sudden I don't trust myself because I'm doing something completely different. I'm working with something I haven't had to work with before. And so, yeah, I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's a little bit of both. I think Bryce very clearly right now is not in a good headspace. It's blatantly obvious. He talked about that last night as well. And yeah, it's one of those things where he's even missing pretty bad with his fastball. The home run he gave up to Langeliers, that was a pitch that was supposed to be on the outside corner, ended up middle in. Like he missed by a foot, and it's a big home run, and so it put Oakland right back in the game. A's, whatever. Put him right back in the game. So Bryce right now very clearly is going through something, and whether or not it is mental or physical or both, it's not fun to watch. It's not easy to watch. And at some point you have to wonder how much long-term damage are you doing by continuing to have him go out there over and over again. And again, the Mariners are in a tough spot, right? We're at least a week away from George Kirby at the earliest, probably closer to 2. We are at least, 3-4 weeks away from Logan Gilbert, if you're lucky. So, and you already have Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock in your rotation. So I don't know how you fix this. Now they have an off day coming up. They could, in theory, skip Bryce's spot altogether. And that would potentially get them to George Kirby returning or pretty close to that. And then you could just make that swap and you can send down Miller, you can put him on the IL or whatever, right? You give him the reset that he very clearly needs. You could do that, because I don't know how much you're actually helping Bryce by putting him out there and being like, look, man, you got to figure it out. Like I understand, you're in a tough spot. You don't have a lot of depth. You've already used up all your depth in the rotation. And, it's a scary spot to be in. But I just don't know how much you're helping Bryce. I don't know how much you're helping the ball club by having very clearly a damaged Bryce Miller, again, either physically or mentally or both, go out there and just struggle to keep his head above water for 4 or 5 innings every single time he goes out there. At some point, you kind of have to be like, look, I know that, I know this might hurt the team by going to Sarin Lau or whatever for a couple times through the rotation, but I might just have to do that in both the long term.
I mean, how much worse could it get?
That's what I'm saying. Like, are you even, because again, Bryce is literally struggling to keep his head above water right now.
Because even at this point, like, is Bryce better than Emerson Hancock right now? Is Emerson Hancock your third best starter at the moment? Like, he might be.
Which how this team is won 20 games already, if that's the case, is beyond me. But yeah, because I mean, at the very least, like Emerson is getting through innings, like he's battling and he's getting through innings and he's giving you a chance to win. He's not having 25 pitch innings every single time he goes out there. Bryce right now, like, again, he's not helping himself. He's not really helping the team. And I just worry that at some point, this he feels like he really needs a reset, like a clean reset. And the Mariners don't feel like they're in a position to give it to him. And I mean, like, because we talked about this, like the Mariners are typically very, very cautious with pitchers when it comes to their arm health and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not doing that with Bryce, which leads me to believe that it has to be more of a mental state
Exactly.
thing than a physical state
That's what I was
thing.
saying yesterday. Yeah.
And if that's the case, you got to send him down. You
Yeah.
have an obligation to help Bryce Miller protect himself from Bryce Miller. Like, that is part of your job. And your main job is to win games, obviously. Bryce isn't helping you do that right now. So
Yeah.
not only do we have the benefit of potentially helping Bryce kind of reset, and getting good 2024 Bryce Miller again would be amazing.
Yeah.
Getting that guy back would be awesome. So like, you have the benefit of being like, look, A, he needs the reset, right? He needs the mental break. He needs the reset. So we're going to do that. And B, like, I don't know, could Sarin Lau be better than Bryce Miller pitching at 50%? He might be.
Last night, and especially with the way that this offense is going, like, the offense still gave them a chance to win last night.
Yeah. The offense was not the problem.
And the problem that you ran into, again, like we talked about in the first segment, was Dan didn't have his guns available to him, at the most high leverage moments, except for Munoz, who had to throw 28 pitches to get through his inning. We'll talk about that a little later on. But yeah, now he's down. Thornton threw 30 last night, so he's probably
And
down. Vargas threw 34 last night, so he's probably down.
We won't see either of those two guys until the homestand.
Well, Insider threw 22 last night.
Yeah. And so this is the thing, right? It's like, maybe Lau can only go 3 or 4, but you're planning for that. Like, you have a plan for that.
Sure.
Whereas when Bryce Miller goes out there and he struggles to get through 4, now all of a sudden I have to use Vargas for 2. Now all of a sudden I have to use Thornton for 2. Whereas if you have Lau going out there, Luis F. Castillo or Casey Lawrence, who's a free agent. But
I mean, he's probably coming back.
Yeah, I would assume so. But
yeah.
Like, even if you have those guys out there and they go 4, you're counting on them only going 4, which you can help set up by, using your bullpen differently the day before, or
Sure.
by calling up an extra arm or whatever, right? Like, you can make that adjustment. So yeah, it's just Bryce right now is just really sabotaging any chance the Mariners have to win on the days he starts. And you're just relying all on the offense. And, again, give the offense some credit. Severino's a good pitcher, and they, by hook or by crook, they found a way to get 4 up there against him. And so, yeah, like, the offense scored 6. They did their job. They weren't perfect, obviously.
They got a much needed run right before Mason Miller came into the game.
Right.
That was huge.
They made Mason Miller work. Miller's probably not available today.
Yeah.
So
something's going on with him a little bit right now too. I think, like, I watched his inning against the Marlins when he gave up the walk-off grand slam. Like, his control is kind of all over the place at the moment. So there's never a good time to face Mason Miller, but this is probably the best time to face Mason Miller, if that makes sense.
So I'd rather not have to face him.
Yeah, no, I'd rather not face him at all. I'm just
probably
saying,
not like, either he's not available today or he's not going to be available tomorrow.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, Bryce really sabotaged you because, again, like you said, you had to use the bullpen. Now you already had a short bullpen, and now you have to use Thornton for 2, who, by the way, nice job, Trent. Left a lot of pitches in the middle of the plate.
That was insane. When I saw him back out there for the night.
That's when I knew that Spire wasn't available. I was like, oh no. By the way, Trent, you can't throw first pitch sweepers right down the middle of the plate. Okay. You got away with it like 8 times yesterday. Stop doing that. Okay. But yeah, I mean, like, Vargas and Thornton are down for the rest of the series. Bizzardo might not be available today. He threw a ton of pitches 2 days ago. We assume Spire and Brash will be available today.
Yeah.
But neither of those guys pitched on Sunday, and they still weren't available yesterday.
Kind of feels like we're gonna get a move. Oh, hey, we've got news right now. Dylan Moore has been reinstated. Samad Taylor down to AAA.
Just in time to face Jeffrey Springs.
I guess my last thought on the Miller thing is, like, right now you have Evans, Miller, Hancock bunched together in that order. And you're coming up on a road trip here pretty soon where you're going to play 10 games in 10 days. And with this bullpen and like one of your high leverage guys and Matt Brash not being able to go, every second day right now, that concerns me a lot. So again, like you said, kind of feel like Bryce needs a reset. I don't know if that's sending him down or just putting him on the IL with, arm fatigue or back stiffness or whatever it needs to be.
Sure.
Just to give him a little bit of a mental reprieve.
You could also demote him, call up the extra bullpen arm you probably need. Yeah. And then he only has to stay down for 10 days as opposed to 15 if you put him on the IL. And with the off day on Thursday, you can reset the rotation a little bit. So there's some options there. But it's I think pretty much everything needs to be on the table right now when discussing what to do with Bryce Miller.
Yeah. All right, we got to talk about that 10th inning though. It was insane. It was almost the big storyline that we were going to be talking about for bad reasons on this show. Could have also been the thing that we talked about for good reasons on this show. But the offense didn't score on the top of the 11th. But we got to talk about that Andres Munoz inning. The ultimate ball don't lie moment in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is once again brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the energy of an MLS match, the chants, the atmosphere, the last-minute goals. If you want to experience it all live, Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last-minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLS tickets. Plus, ticket prices actually drop as kickoff gets closer, so you can score amazing seats at a great price. I love that I can see the exact view from my seat before I buy, so there's no surprises when I get to the stadium. Gametime also has event cancellation protection and even job loss assurance so I can buy with confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Let's talk about that Andres Munoz inning, the 10th inning.
Let's talk about Carlos Carrasco.
Carlos Carrasco,
the solution to all of the Mariners
problems. DFA'd by the Yankees. Can he go 5 or 6?
If he can, he's probably helping you more than Bryce.
Yikes. That is not something that I ever thought I would say on this show or ever agree with on this show. But things are not going super great for Bryce Miller right now. All right, so let's talk about that Andres Munoz inning. So the Mariners make it 6-5. Mooney takes over in the bottom of the 10th and unfortunately gives up his first run of the year, not earned, but it's the first run that he gives up of the year on a ball hit by Jacob Wilson to score the automatic runner from second. Then all hell broke loose. It looked like he got Nick Kurtz on a check swing for strike 3.
Should have.
Yeah, should have. Like it looked like he very clearly broke the play, but he said nope. So now you got first and second, and then Luis Arias, who had far too many common Luis Arias W's last night. Looked like he was going to bunt, ends up, hitting a little bouncer in the infield. All right, runners are going to advance. At least you got the one out. Right, it's going to be second and third, one out. No, catcher's interference is called on Cal Raleigh. And so Dan comes out, argues with the home plate umpire, who was absolutely garbage last night, by the way. Wasn't the problem in this game, but it was a problem. And he decides to challenge catcher's interference call. And on the replay, it very clearly looks like Arias' bat never touches Raleigh's glove on any angle that they showed, even with the laces. Doesn't seem like he makes contact with the laces, which shouldn't matter. I don't know if that's actually the rule. It is the rule on tags. I don't know if it's also the rule on catcher's interference, but laces shouldn't matter. So not only do they maintain the call on the field, not only does the call stand, It's apparently confirmed. I'm sorry? Confirmed?
Yeah, definitely not. With the since replay has come into vogue, that might be the most egregious miscall ever. Because like, okay, fine, whatever. You miss it on the first go, pre-replay, nothing you can do about it, blah, 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 whatever. You got to watch the replay. You got how many different angles showing the bat doesn't make contact with the glove.
Yeah.
And it's confirmed.
Confirmed.
Not stands.
Like, yeah, like if you said call stands, I would still be mad, but I'd be like, okay, whatever. Confirmed?
That's ridiculous. It's an epic miscall. Now it didn't end up mattering. But that is as egregious of a miscall as you could possibly have. Now, maybe there's some angle that they had that we didn't get to see, but I doubt it. It was again, because of the advantage you have of replay now, for that to be a confirmed call makes it one of the worst calls I've ever seen.
So then you're thinking at that point, right? Like, oh God, the vibes are terrible. This game's over. Now they still wound up losing, but still, it was like, all right, this game is going to end here, not an inning later. Moody comes back and freezes Lawrence Butler, top rail. Nasty, nasty fastball. Then Brent Rooker comes up, gets into a 3-1 count. Mooney throws a fastball in on his hands. He fouls it off. Could have been ball 4. Could have been the game right there. Fouls it off. And then Mooney goes right back to it. Same spot, fastball, and Rooker swings right through it. You're like, oh, okay. All right. Oh, boy. And then Tyler Soderstrom just didn't stand a chance.
No, he had the one pitch to hit, and he missed it. And after that, game over. The Munoz strikeout of Rooker, particularly the 3-2 pitch, like, you sit there and you watch it, you're like, oh, that was ball 4. Why'd you swing at it? And then you watch like the actual pitch. It starts dead red.
Yeah.
And then it just right into his hands. Like the movement on that pitch, it was insane. And how about Mooney? Big time slider guy in that moment. You're probably thinking slider, like trust the slider, go for it. Nope. Mm-hmm. Throws a fastball, 2-seamer, actually, not even a 4-seamer, 2-seamer.
Yeah.
And it just rides right into the hands of Rooker, who's, hitting the ball pretty darn well. Again. That pitch was just because, again, you watch the release point and you watch as it approaches home, it is dead red. Rooker's eyes probably lit like, oh my God, yes. Yeah. And the next thing you know, it's in on his hands and he just can't do anything with it. Like that pitch was, that is the definition of the screw you fastball.
Yeah. And that moment wouldn't have even been made possible if not for an insane block by Cal Raleigh on the first pitch of that at bat on a fastball that Mooney spiked. Mm-hmm. He also threw another slider in the dirt for the third ball of the at bat. Cal deserves a lot of credit for that inning as well. But that was, again, the ultimate ball don't lie moment. This is why Andres Munoz is the best reliever in the game right now, bar none. Like, he's the best reliever in the game.
To see what he did last night after everything went against him for the first 3 or 4 hitters, that's special. And that's why Munoz is, I don't want to say almost certainly going to the All-Star game because we're still 2 months away from that being a thing.
Sure.
But it's hard to imagine that Munoz won't be one of the Mariners representatives at the All-Star game in Atlanta, I want to say.
Yeah, Atlanta. Yeah,
so, Atlanta. Yeah, but dude is insane right now.
Yeah, what's most impressive too is what he's doing with traffic on the base pass. Right now, he's running a 15.6 Ks per 9 with runners in scoring position. So that is a 44% K rate. His career high in those situations before this year, 28.3% last year. He is, even when he's getting into, or actually how I should word this is when he's getting into trouble, it's like he gets better.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Munoz last year. Munoz has always been good, borderline great. But we saw him last year. Like sometimes you could just tell within the first couple of pitches, like, oh no, Munoz doesn't have it tonight. There's very little you could do at that point. Like he doesn't have it, and there's very little chance that he's going to figure it out on the mound or he's going to make that adjustment. It's just one of those things, right? Like Munoz had it. You felt like nobody could touch him. When he didn't have it, you're like, oh no. This year, there are times where you're like, oh man, Andres doesn't have it tonight. He's spiking pitches and all that. And yet this year, though, he's found a way to get through it, to work through it. And he goes to other pitches and he finds a way to make it work. So that's a big step in the process for Munoz. Just the ability to be like, what I want to do just isn't working tonight. I need to make the adjustment here. And I'm still going to trust my stuff, my secondary pitches, which for Munoz really is the 4-seamer and the 2-seam. Those are his secondary pitches. It's the slider. That's the primary. But yeah, we've seen him just find value out of that fastball even more and more. And the 2-seamer really is quite a weapon for him this year.
All right, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.